When a man chooses to ignore you, the natural instinct for most women is to look inward and ask themselves, what did I do wrong? What is lacking in me? That questioning voice arises quickly. But what if I told you that his silence, his indifference, and his detachment are not truly about you at all? What if that lack of attention actually exposes more about his hidden weaknesses than any flaw in your character? The great psychologist Carl Jung once explained that what human beings project outward onto others is very often just a reflection of the fears and shadows they carry within themselves. This means his behavior might reveal far more about his own battles than about you. So why does a man decide to ignore the woman in front of him? What really lies behind that cold exterior, that mask of emotional distance that appears so strong, but in truth conceals something fragile, conflicted, and deeply vulnerable? Could it be that he is hiding something not only from you, but even from his own conscious mind? Jung always emphasized that both the male and female psyche are filled with unconscious shadows, those darker aspects of our personality that we deny, repress, or refuse to admit exist. He called this hidden region the shadow, and it represents everything we struggle to keep buried. When a man ignores you, there is a high chance that he is unconsciously projecting his own insecurities, perhaps a fear of attachment, perhaps an overwhelming sense of inferiority, or even wounds from his past he has never dared to confront. He may be unable to face his emotions honestly, and so he masks them with silence. The truth is that very often the weakness he carries is hidden exactly in the thing he tries hardest to disguise. But what truly makes a man act in this cold manner? Is it genuine pride, a detached and emotionally icy nature? Or is it deep down the fear that if he shows attention to you, if he reveals affection, something secret will be exposed, something he wants to keep concealed at all costs? His silence may not be a demonstration of strength at all. More often than not, it is evidence of an inner conflict, one that he may not even fully understand. Carl Jung already warned us that until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So is this man in control of his actions? Or has he unknowingly become a prisoner of his own shadows? This is exactly where many women make a painful mistake. They misinterpret his silence as a puzzle that they must solve, a challenge they must overcome, or even as an invitation to prove their worth. They try to gain his attention, chase his approval, or attempt to unravel the mystery of his detachment. But Jung reminds us that real power is not in chasing or pursuing, it is in integration, in knowing yourself, and refusing to collapse into another person's unconscious drama. So what happens when you stop reacting to his silence, and instead, you turn the lens inward? What if his coldness is teaching you something about your own resilience, your own ability to remain whole, regardless of another person's behavior? When you recognize that a man's deepest weakness often lies in his inability to process what he truly feels for you, his ignoring of you stops being a wound and begins to reveal the truth of his inner struggle. In this exploration, we are going to uncover what it really means when a man ignores you, and how his apparent strength is often his greatest weakness. By the end, you will see that his behavior, once confusing and painful, can become your greatest advantage. Because you are about to witness something he cannot even admit to himself. And once you understand it, his silence will never again have the power to control your emotions. Think about this. He leaves, he withdraws, he ignores you, and he does so with certainty that you will always be there waiting. He assumes he can come and go as he pleases, that your presence, attention, and affection are permanent fixtures in his world. He expects that whenever he chooses to return, you will remain exactly as before, still available, still waiting, still ready to accept the smallest crumb of attention. But what occurs when that certainty vanishes? What happens when he suddenly realizes that you are no longer the predictable, endlessly patient woman he once took for granted? Jung remarked that the greatest illusion of humanity is the belief that we can control what we do not understand. And the truth is, a man only feels the real impact of your absence when the comfort he once had begins to transform into deep uncertainty. His real weakness is not in ignoring you, nor in leaving. His weakness lives in the assumption that nothing will ever change, that you will always be there, ready to feed his ego. But when you stop reacting, when you stop showing desperate interest, when you no longer provide that unwavering attention he always relied upon, the dynamic shifts dramatically. You stop being a passive part of his story and instead become an enigma, someone he can no longer easily predict or decode. And this is the exact point at which he begins to feel internal conflict. Because, as Carl Jung explained, human beings are disturbed by what they cannot predict. Doubt corrodes far more powerfully than the pain of loss. Many women, however, fall into the trap of trying to regain his attention, posting indirect messages, checking if he sees their stories, inventing excuses to stay present in his world. Ironically, every one of those acts only strengthens his illusion that he has control over you. But here is the truth. You don't need to prove anything. The real game changes the moment you grasp that your absence carries more weight than your desperate attempts to be noticed. When he realizes you no longer send messages, you no longer react to his posts, you no longer seek to be visible in his world, a void begins to open in his mind. The woman he thought he knew so well no longer exists. And this is the first great weakness of a man who chooses to ignore you. His sense of control dissolves the moment he discovers that you are no longer available on demand. Jung wrote that everything we reject in others is a reflection of what we reject in ourselves. Often, a man ignores a woman because he cannot confront the power she holds over him. But when he suddenly perceives that this impact has vanished, he is thrown into confusion. So now let us go further. Do you want to know the 5 most sensitive weak points of a man who ignores you? These are the points which, when touched, can make even the proudest man reconsider his attitude. Stay with me, because what comes next may completely alter how you see this entire game. When you step back and disappear from his life, he starts to feel a discomfort that was not present before. That constant presence he once took for granted has suddenly vanished, and without realizing it, he is forced to taste a small portion of the same silence he used to impose on you. The silence that once gave him power now begins to work against him. Carl Jung taught that the human psyche is always balancing between opposites, and when one extreme disappears, the other naturally intensifies. If before he felt comfortable ignoring you, now his discomfort begins to grow. Absence has an extraordinary effect. It makes him notice the space he once occupied, and that emptiness begins to weigh heavily on him. Soon subtle signs appear. He views your stories. He reacts to a post. He leaves a small comment. These little gestures are his way of saying, I am still here. But the key difference now is that he no longer has the certainty that you are always available. The effortless attention he once received has now turned into his greatest vulnerability. Jung explained that the human mind searches for equilibrium, and when a constant presence suddenly disappears, the brain enters a state of heightened alertness. This is precisely what you have triggered in him. The second weak point of a man who ignores you lies in the false security he feels when he believes you are always waiting. Many men exploit female insecurity because it gives them a sense of dominance. If he senses that you think you cannot live without him, that you are afraid to lose him, or that you fear you will never find anyone better, then he feels completely free to ignore you. But everything shifts the moment you prove otherwise. When you radiate confidence, when your energy shifts from scarcity to abundance, something in him becomes unsettled. Jung famously said, "What we resist persists." So when a man suddenly senses that the control he believed he had over you is slipping away, he begins to feel a new, unsettling sensation, uncertainty. The game transforms when you strengthen your self-esteem and stop chasing crumbs of attention. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. A woman who knows her worth, who recognizes her own value, never begs to be seen. And paradoxically, it is this self-assurance that makes her truly irresistible. Because she no longer occupies the position of someone needy, she is instead a woman of choice, not of necessity. When you rise to this level of confidence, you not only reclaim your personal power, but also undermine his false sense of security. He no longer feels certain that he can ignore you without consequences. And at that precise moment, he begins to wonder, what if she is not there when I want to return? Before we move forward to the third weak point of a man who ignores you, ask yourself, have you ever been in such a situation? Have you felt the sting of being ignored because he believed he could do so without paying any price? If this insight resonates with you, pause for a moment. Acknowledge that you are not alone in this experience. Many women across the world have faced this exact dynamic. And by understanding it, by seeing clearly how the unconscious plays out in relationships, you begin to reclaim control. Jung always reminded us that transformation comes from awareness, from bringing the unconscious into the light of consciousness. So let's continue. When a man pulls away and ignores you, he often does it with the arrogance of someone who believes he is the absolute center of your universe. He convinces himself that he is irreplaceable, that your happiness depends solely on his presence. And sadly, many women unintentionally feed that illusion by investing all their energy in him, while forgetting the other aspects of life that equally deserve attention. Jung pointed out that whatever you focus your energy on will grow. So if all your energy is consumed by the man who ignores you, you are only enlarging the power he imagines he has over you. But what happens when you reverse this? What if he suddenly realizes he is no longer the only source of importance in your life? The third weak point of a man who ignores you lies exactly here, in the illusion of exclusivity. He believes he is unique, essential, the axis around which your world revolves. To break this cycle, you must disrupt this illusion of superiority. The best way to do this is by re-strengthening your own relationships, your friendships, your family ties, your social circles. Without noticing, many women distance themselves from these sources of support, focusing entirely on the man who now withholds attention. But when you re-engage with those connections, something powerful shifts. Your life becomes more vibrant, filled with new perspectives and new meaning. Suddenly, he is no longer the single pillar of your happiness. This doesn't mean you must rush to find another man as replacement. That is not the point. The point is to expand your vision of life, to realize that the world is filled with people and opportunities that make you feel valued. As you open yourself to new environments, to new friendships, your presence becomes more magnetic. And what happens to him in that moment? His sense of being irreplaceable begins to crumble. Jung explained that humans fear most the loss of control over what they believe they own. When he realizes he is not the center of your world, he begins to feel exactly what he once made you feel: uncertainty. Another great weakness he carries unknowingly is his belief that he must feel essential to you. Many men think a woman cannot survive emotionally or financially without them, and this illusion grants them false confidence. But when you demonstrate independence, when you make it clear that your life is complete with or without him, his illusion is shattered. You become not the needy woman he could ignore, but the independent woman he now fears losing. This is the true turning point of the game. He may still ignore you outwardly, but internally, he feels something he cannot easily name. He feels threatened, because suddenly, the balance of power has shifted. It is not you who is losing, but him. And now we move to the most sensitive area of all a man's self-esteem. This is often his most fragile point, even if he masks it with pride. Carl Jung reminded us that much of identity is constructed through the reflections and projections we receive from others. When a man feels admired, validated, and desired by a woman, his ego is nourished. It convinces him that he is in control. But what occurs when that steady source of validation suddenly stops flowing? What happens when he no longer feels the unconditional attention you once gave freely? He becomes vulnerable because the foundation of his self-esteem, fed by your admiration, collapses. Most men don't realize the weight of a woman's presence until she emotionally withdraws. It's not necessary to play manipulative games or act with cruelty. The true impact occurs when you stop treating him as exceptional, when you cease elevating him above everyone else. Suddenly, he becomes just another individual in your world. And to his unconscious mind, this feels like a profound loss. Jung observed that the unconscious always acts symbolically. So when a man senses that the woman who once uplifted him no longer behaves the same way, he experiences an unexplainable void. He may not even understand why he feels restless, but the truth is that he has lost something he thought would always be his. Here lies one of the greatest weak points. A man becomes accustomed to being desired and admired without having to work for it. But when that validation disappears, what was once comfort suddenly turns into a painful need. It becomes a gap inside him he cannot fill on his own. At this moment, the wisest choice for you is not to chase or beg. Instead, you redirect all that energy back into yourself. You invest in your own life, your own growth, your own fulfillment. And by doing this, you become the woman who does not require a man's attention to feel amazing. That transformation forces him to recognize, often for the first time, that he has lost something precious. The principle of reciprocity, as Jung's teachings suggest, is vital here. Relationships act as mirrors. If you continually give admiration and attention without receiving it in return, he never learns to value it. He begins to believe your devotion is automatic, that it is his right. But the moment you stop feeding his ego without return, he realizes his mistake. This is why so many women feel frustrated. They keep giving endlessly, waiting for the day he will finally reciprocate. But a woman who truly knows her worth never gives everything away for free. She understands that a healthy bond requires balance. Now, consider Jung's idea that humans unconsciously test boundaries to see how far they can go. Many men pull away, ignore, or act indifferent, not because they are cruel, but because they are unconsciously testing how much you will tolerate. If you continue to accept this, they lose respect, and their appreciation for you diminishes. But imagine what happens when you stop offering endless validation. Imagine the shock in his psyche when the certainty he relied on evaporates. Suddenly, the predictable pattern is broken, and his ego enters a crisis. He had always believed your attention was guaranteed, something he could claim effortlessly. But now he realizes he must work to regain it. This is when insecurity enters his world. Jung noted that the psyche thrives on predictability. So when you change your behavior, the man who thought he controlled the game begins to experience discomfort. He realizes that the rules have shifted, and now he is the one being tested. This is the difference between the woman who is valued and the woman who is ignored. The valued woman knows her attention is a gift. She does not beg, she does not chase, and she never accepts less than she deserves. And when a man realizes he could truly lose her, his desire for control is replaced with a desperate need to be accepted. But here is the crucial point. For this to be real, it cannot be a game. You must genuinely know your worth. Pretending will not work, because Jung warned that the unconscious always perceives the truth beneath appearances. So ask yourself, have you been living with the hope that someday he will see your value, even while you yourself failed to fully recognize it? If you accept less than you deserve, if you keep giving to someone who does not reciprocate, you are sending the message to your own subconscious that you are not enough. This belief must be broken now. Imagine the shock in his mind when he realizes you no longer need him to feel whole. Imagine the fear when he perceives he has lost control, that perhaps he has made the greatest mistake of his life. At that moment, he feels fear, the fear of losing you, the fear of becoming irrelevant. The fear of understanding that the power he thought he had never truly existed. And that is when the control shifts completely. From the very beginning, the question was never about him, it was always about you. Why did you accept so little when you always deserved so much more? Jung explained that what we refuse to face within ourselves, we end up projecting outward. So if you spend endless time worrying about a man who ignores you, about what he feels, what he wants, what he thinks, perhaps it is time to ask, where is that same dedication when it comes to you? Did you hand your sense of worth over to him? The truth may sting, but it is liberating. If a man believes he can ignore you without losing anything, he will never value you. The final truth is this: you are the one who teaches others how to treat you. You define the boundaries. If you have not been valued until now, it is time to shift the dynamic completely. Jung's insight remains clear. Everything you attract is a reflection of what you carry inside. So never again beg to be seen. Shine by yourself. Because the man who ignores you is not strong, he is afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of realizing that he wasted the devotion of a remarkable woman. And when you grow stronger, more confident, more self-loving, he will face his greatest weakness, the truth that he never had power over you.